So you and I, we have to have a little bit of a discussion, and we've gotten our notepad out to go over things. So we have 6 different things on top of some headlines that we are going to discuss. And again, today is going to be little bit heavier on the TCG side. If this is your first time clicking into a video, what's up? My name is Schiller. We talk about collectibles as a whole, Monday through Friday, and particularly I have been really jumping down the trading card rabbit hole. So today, of the 6 topics in particular, we're talking about Magic the Gathering and the lawsuit. We're talking about one of the biggest content creators around Magic and their specific reaction to this lawsuit. We are talking a little bit about the Riftbound TCG. We are going over the Pokemon problems. What else we got on here? Oh, the one thing that still stands out amongst all these TCGs, that one's going to be fun. And how would you handle things if you are a local store owner of a card shop? Because I think that is something that needs to be discussed a little bit more, of trying to put ourselves in other people's shoes. We'll also try to think, okay, for ourselves, how are we going to enjoy just that? And also, here's just a really amazing footage of a Nidoking that has got some hollow foil to it. How wonderful. We're in it for the art. Okay, so let's talk off the rip for the Magic the Gathering lawsuit. So TLDR, there is a lawsuit that has been presented, submitted, whatever, where the thought and idea around all of this is the fact that Hasbro was struggling as a company, and they decided that they were going to print or add a whole bunch of Magic the Gathering supply out there to try to kind of anchor, help support other parts of the company that weren't doing as good for their projections. And within this, they, go into length about every little detail. And I was watching Rudy, who's a part of Alpha Investments, you might be familiar with within the TCG space. And he made the point of, we've thought about them doing this for quite some time because it just felt weird around Magic the Gathering. And I'm sitting here as somebody that used to play Magic the Gathering religiously. I'm somebody that gets into something and I'm like, let me go full hard, like just all in on this. And whether that ends up lasting for 3 months, whether that ends up lasting a year, whatever it be. And so I joined during the Dominaria set. I learned Magic the Gathering, I want to say like a day or two before going to a pre-release. I was just going all in. I went to it. It was amazing. I went to both the, I don't remember if it was like a Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday, but I went to at least 2 of them, and I was having the time of my life. And then you go on YouTube, you're figuring out, okay, there's these budget decks, there's these meta decks, which just mean it's the meta, it's the strongest deck that you can find. And I was really interested in all of these different components, and I loved it. And then you get really overwhelmed of, okay, so there's standard format, there's modern format, there's commander format, and you go down this entire list, and then you have to go way back. And yo, Jacob Moore, what's going on? What's going on? And you have to go way back to learn about all of these different sets, things, formats, and it's like, okay, this is sort of overwhelming. But then I was committed. I was like, I enjoy the standard gameplay that is the current. And then you get waffled with, okay, every 3 months they come up with a new release, cards change in circulation. So some things you've had, you basically have to get a new product if you want to end up continuing to play. And it was like, oh, okay, this is going to end up being sort of costly. Now, Magic the Gathering was something that, again, I started with. When you go over to Pokemon, it's usually a little bit cheaper to get into a specific deck, obviously, because there's a bajillion Pokemon cards out there. Obviously, there's a high demand right now, so maybe that statement is not necessarily as accurate because I haven't tried to go and buy a deck around Pokemon, but I had such a good experience playing Magic at the time that I did that there was nothing that really made me say, you know what, I don't really like this company, I don't want to buy its product. But then hearing amongst this lawsuit, it's like, oh, this is kind of like public relations damage sort of deal. Like, what is the sentiment around this if they know, people know for sure, and obviously we have no idea what's actually going to end up coming to for this lawsuit, but let's say that it is not necessarily a great outcome. How much of demand destruction does that have to do or taint the brand in any way moving forward? Because all of this is about who is going to be there in the future. The stream yesterday, we went in depth talking about, well, all right, well, what is it like if the next generation is going to inherit collectibles, whatever it may be? The things that people love right now, maybe they don't love in the future, similar to how, we go back 20, 30, 40 years, and a lot of the things that people collect, some of them stayed as collectibles and some of them absolutely did not do that. And I'm really nervous around the Magic the Gathering front, because one of the comments that Rudy made within his stream was, oh, I lost my train of thought, son of a gun. What was the thing that he said? It was about Magic the Gathering. Hold on, I started notes. This is the worst. See, I don't know if this will like show up on here, but I have all of my notes written down for here. Oh, he said, this is why you take notes, because then you get a prompt for it. He said that Magic has actually helped their other competitors win because of their incompetence around certain things, the set releases, whatever it may be. And I think that's a brilliant statement, because we've seen the likes of almost every other trading card game come into the space. Magic the Gathering had a grip on the entire industry, and then all of a sudden, it's like, okay, they're not that interested. And so on a local card shop that I went to the other day, one of the employees, part owners, I'm not really sure the connotation to it, they were kind of explaining how a different card shop in the area, they were basically being kept afloat from the Magic the Gathering players that were there. And then there was some falling out between store owners, players, whatever it may be. It is what it is, but it's like, damn. Like, if some of these game stores were being propped up from the Magic the Gathering fan bases, because, again, people were going out to these stores to play, buy these packs, everything else, if you take away the in-person experiences and you take away the fan base, well, that's going to be a little bit of a problem. And that's something that we do have to talk about as well, for not just simply Magic the Gathering, because take a look at this, and I thought this one was crazy. So nothing against this person, I'm sure they're lovely, but the fact that Riot is still giving away product to influencers when there's been none on shelves since launch is disheartening. So they're talking about Riftbound here, which is another TCG. It's around the League of Legends brand IP. Our locals has gone from 16 players to less than 4. Hope they sort the stock issues before it dies. And we take what we just talked about regarding Magic the Gathering, and you say, okay, so there is a brand problem potentially developing within the Magic the Gathering landscape. Well, you see over in Riftbound, the problem is the product availability and new players wanting to jump in, because, again, think of all the different options. If you are a TCG player, how much you're going to have to go through. And then there was another component of all of this as well, right? Or we go down another game. Gundam TCG died in my area because people couldn't get product. Could see the same thing happening with Riftbound. I stopped trying to play when every single price was inflated and ridiculous. Shit has to change soon or people will quickly leave by set 3 or 4. And this is sort of what like the Gundam cards look like if you've never seen that specific set. But you notice that it's a problem amongst all of these, and people are trying to figure out how to fix things. Pokemon's made the announcement that they're going to have a huge printer facility, but what's the number one thing still plaguing the Pokemon game as a whole? Well, you go online, you type in anything Pokemon TCG related, and you're still seeing fights, people ransacking shelves, the most crazy videos you've seen of scalpers, resellers that are going out buying this product just simply for that. Well, we're seeing these inflated prices across Pokemon, but again, pretty much every single TCG, where you go to a store, and I mean, if you've not looked at the prices of trading cards for any of these bigger players, it is just, it's shocking. But what's the single thing that is still relevant towards all these TCGs that for those in the digital space can appreciate just as much? We love the art. People still have some sort of not affliction, interest, love, nostalgia, whatever it be, for these different cards. And we'll see where some have crazy art that people really like, and the prices are going to be devoted simply because of that aspect. So then the final thought before we get into some just other general news was, how would you handle an organized local TCG nights if you are a shop owner where, okay, you need people to come through and potentially play these games? Because let's use any other sort of example. Paintball. What happens with paintball if you don't have enough players or people that are introduced to it? Well, you start running low on the people that are supplying the paintballs, which there was a big company that shut down around that not that long ago, right? Again, that sport doesn't have as much interest as it did a couple years ago. So how do you foster a new player base? Unless we are just looking at trading cards as an asset class as a whole, and it turns simply into portfolio. So you have to think, your store owner, Do you get apps? Do you put out newsletters? Do you try to get kids within the store? Do you try to, go to high schools, have some sort of like a segment where you go and try it? And I mean, anyone a Stranger Things fan out there? Well, Dungeons and Dragons. I've had friends that have brought up Dungeons and Dragons before, like the role-playing game where you kind of all sit around and they make believe sort of deal. And I've never been like, oh yeah, like I want to do that. But there was one time in college, my good friend Bowen, he was like, yo, come over. We were in like the residential area and we were like making a character ahead of time. And he was going on about how his character is going to be this, it's going to look like that, it's going to have this personality, everything else. I was like, okay, so this is like my first experience with this. And I never ended up playing like a real round of D&D. But how do you introduce new people to continue growing something that seems to have so many problems across the board? And if you can figure out how to do it the best, well, there is quite an audience out there, but it goes back to the question of, are we going to be people that are playing the games, or are these all going to be just simply about the portfolios of the cards themselves? So a Kaboom Mike Tyson. Not too long ago, we did a lengthy stream going over a bunch of different Mike Tyson cards. Kaboom cards are one of the most sought after within sports. Obviously, you can see that it just says Kaboom on them, but somebody got a PSA 10 variant of the 2025 Combat Anthology. And I thought, damn, that one looks pretty sweet. So I wanted to show that one off to you guys. And then, when was the last time that you thought about buying a website? You ever have an idea that you sit there and you're like, you know what? This is a brilliant $1 million idea. If we get a wicked Instagram handle, we get a wicked website handle, this is something we can absolutely do. Well, Law.eth. Somebody's maybe getting into the law industry and on the blockchain world. They spent $22,000 to buy Law.eth, which shows on the blockchain. Another person bought Human.eth. And so on the digital landscape, we are seeing names suddenly being something that people really want. Now, suddenly is maybe not the right terminology for this, because we've seen time and time again where there has been an interest for these domain type names. And we've seen, again, on a grander scale of things, people paying it over the years. And again, there's also, to the Pokemon reference, there's an entire club of like Pokemon ENS names, which stands for Ethereum Name Service. And people like the Nidoking, like the Pikachu, like the Charizard. People are going out and trying to acquire those names, thinking down the line that that's something that people are wanting to collect down the road, which is ultimately what we are always questioning and trying to figure out. I was watching the Raptors versus Knicks game last night, right? Little old NBA action. And there was an ad for this movie that was produced by Steph Curry. And I'm watching the trailer and I'm seeing these characters and I'm just thinking, there's something about this that just looks eerily too familiar for something that I've never heard of before. And then it hit me. This is like the look, the style of everything Zootopia, which again has just cracked all of the records. Zootopia 2 is now the 10th highest grossing film of all time. A little bit of imitation game, if you will. So if you see those commercials, let me know if you see the same kind of resemblance between the two. Very, very smart to capitalize on that, if that was intentional, but I have no idea if not. Dan the Yasman. Yeah, I followed them and they followed me back. I might try to hit them up for an interview. But they've bought every set of tops all the way back to 1970 and just have all of these binders, which it pains me a little bit because looking at them, it looks like the ring binders. And if you're maybe newer to TCGs, they always suggest don't buy ring binders because on the fold, you can end up creasing the cards, and nobody wants creased cards that way. But what an unbelievable set. You can see on the bottom, too, that there's a couple of other ones where it says Fleer Upper Deck. I can't really read what the other ones are, but what a phenomenal kind of crazy collection on that front. But a little bit of a rant, a little bit of a discussion around some movies, and trying to, dress up for you guys. So hope you enjoyed that quick 15-minute stream. Of course, we do the RWA Segments podcast, which we've been dropping a ton of episodes lately. We got another one coming up with the Gutter Cat Gang founder, who is super, super open. And if you're somebody within the digital asset space, you are going to be shocked to hear kind of what he's implied about the previous owners and things that have happened within the Gutter Cat Gang, and trying to revive that IP. And listen, there's something new happening every single day, and I appreciate you guys so much for coming on through. If you like the stream, we'd love for you to like it, sign it to a friend. I'll catch you tomorrow. Otherwise, have a phenomenal rest of your day, and we'll talk soon. Peace.